Belle Olympics, 24 balance changes. Intro over. Belle is a Wild West outlaw who is very likely based off of the American outlaw Belle Star, spelled with 2 R's. That's right, guys. Dun dun dun. It looks like her arm has been replaced by a robotic golden one, which is why I believe that she's the leader of the Gold Arm Gang, a new brawler trio of Wild West outlaws who are probably sworn enemies to Colt, Shelly, and Spike, who are the Wild West Sheriff trio. Belle is a chromatic brawler and can be unlocked after reaching tier 30 on the Brawl Pass. And here's what all of her pins look like for those of you guys who purchase the Brawl Pass. And for those of you that do, make sure you support my channel by using code Kairos.
Kairos, code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop.
Belle loves robbing banks, and based off of some of her voice lines, she might even be a mother to a future brawler.
Mom never misses. Oh, that's gonna leave a mark. Glad you ain't my kid. My fizzle is ready to sizzle.
Belle's attack, shocker. For her attack, Belle fires a very long-range projectile. If it hits an enemy, the charge from her attack will hesitate for a second, and if there's another enemy close to it, it will then bounce to that enemy and deal half of its original damage to that second enemy. Now, if enemies stay within 3 tiles of each other, the attack will continue bouncing between them until they either separate or one of them dies. Now, if Belle's attack kills an enemy, it will not bounce to another target, so keep that in mind. Now, the attack will bounce between any enemy target, including safes, spawns from other brawlers, and even showdown boxes. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that a target can only pass 1 charge to an enemy at a time, even if they get hit by 2 projectiles. Belle's super, Spotter. Belle's super also has a very long range, and when it hits an enemy, not only does it deal an okay amount of damage, it also causes that enemy to take 35% more damage from any source. That's enough increased damage to make a bow have the health equivalent of a barley. And as another example, it's enough increased damage to make a maxed out El Primo have the same health equivalent as Shelly. Now, if Belle puts a target on one enemy, and before they die, she puts a target on another enemy, the first target will disappear since Belle can only put a target on one enemy at a time. If Belle uses her super on a safe in Heist or an Ike turret in Siege, the target will not be applied and they will not take additional damage. However, the target increases damage to all other enemies, including enemy siege bots. This super is basically a death sentence because a brawler will not get rid of the target until they get taken out. I should also mention that the damage buffs from 8-Bit, Colonel Ruffs, and Belle can stack, making it possible to deal 126% more damage in, of course, the perfect circumstance. This means that the highest potential damage with 1 ammo in the game is 6,162 damage with 8-Bit. That's enough to kill 39 out of the 46 brawlers in the game with just 1 ammo. Belle's gadget, Nest Egg. When Belle activates this gadget, she places a trap on the ground that will explode when triggered by an opponent. The trap deals 500 damage and slows down anyone within its blast radius for 3 seconds. Now, Belle's able to have all 3 traps placed down at the same time, and although this gadget is similar to Beau's super, even if you see where the enemy places the traps before they disappear, there's no way to disarm them without taking damage, unless of course you have some sort of an ability that spawns something on top of it. Belle's first star power, positive feedback. With this star power equipped, Belle gains a 25% shield whenever her shots hit an enemy. The shield does not last for very long, but let's just say that Belle only takes damage when the shield is up. In this rare situation, she would be able to absorb 4,853 damage before getting taken out. In other words, it would be like she had the health of Colette. Belle's second star power, grounded. With this star power equipped, if Belle hits an enemy brawler with her super, they will not be able to reload any ammo for 3 seconds. They can still fire ammo if they have it, but if they don't have any ammo reloaded, it will not start reloading for 3 seconds, which is plenty of time for Belle to take them out. Mark my words, this is a strong star power. Now that we know how Belle works, it's time for us to see how she does in all the Brawl Stars Olympics events. We're gonna start with her worst tests and then move our way up to her best tests. After that, we'll cover the balance changes happening with this update. By the way, if you like what you're seeing, make sure you subscribe for the Squeak Olympics and other sneak peeks as well, or just because I'm really close to 700,000 subscribers. The Swarm Test. Belle's worst test is the Swarm Test. It takes her 34 seconds to wipe out all of the bots, and the only brawler that she's faster than is Jean. Interestingly enough, if Belle did just a little less damage with her attacks so that they would bounce onto other bots without killing them, then she would actually do better in this test. The Supercharge Test. Belle requires 5 hits for her to charge her super, and her bounce shots actually don't help at all. As such, it takes her 5.2 seconds to charge her super and 4.5 seconds to recharge her super. I'm gonna say that Belle takes 44th out of the 46 brawlers in the game, but I haven't done an updated supercharge test, so chances are she might even be last. The boss test. It takes Belle 1 minute and 28 seconds to completely wipe out the boss, which places her between Colette and Leon at 38th place for this test. Now for reference, this is about 10 seconds slower than Byron, about 20 seconds slower than Piper, and about 30 seconds slower than Nani, who I all consider to be similar brawlers to Belle because they're snipers. The survival test. Belle has 3,640 health, which is the same amount of health as Nani. However, she's able to use her positive feedback star power to shield just enough damage to allow her to survive an additional hit from the sniper bot. She survives for 11.1 seconds, which ties her with Amber, Penny, Jesse, and Mr. P for 35th place in this test. The dive test. Because Belle's super doesn't increase damage on the Ike turret, her best way to do well in this test is just to fire 3 regular attacks before she dies. She's able to deal 4,620 damage before dying, which ties her with BB and Surge for 35th in this test. The assassin test. By firing her super first, dropping a gadget, and then using 3 quick attacks, Belle is able to deal 7,612 damage in 3 seconds, which places her in 33rd for this test. Now, most brawlers aren't able to deal their assassin test worth of damage in a regular situation. However, this is actually very realistic for Belle, because if she has a super charge and an enemy gets slowed by one of her traps, Belle will be able to auto-aim her super and 3 quick shots from a long distance away, meaning she could very well take out the vast majority of the brawlers, assuming she's able to do this perfectly. The super test. Belle's super only deals 700 damage, so she takes 31st for this test. I don't think that's a really fair depiction of her super because it permanently increases damage on the enemy until they die, but in all honesty, 700 damage is not very much. The area test. Belle is able to clear 20 skulls with her super and 22 with her attack. This ties her with Colt, Tick, Byron, and Mortis for 29th place. The box test. It takes Belle 49.1 seconds to wipe out all 16 boxes because of her low damaging attack and slower reload speed. This places her between Jesse and Sandy for this test at 29th. However, if she were allowed to attack multiple groups of boxes out of order, which she's not allowed to do for this test, she would be able to finish earlier because her shots literally bounce between boxes until one of them pops. The race test. Belle has a normal walk speed and no other way for her to improve her time in the race test. As such, she ties with most brawlers for 29th place in this test. The reload test. It takes Belle 19.8 seconds to unload and reload 10 shots, which puts her average reload speed at 1.98 seconds. This is about right in the middle of all the brawlers, but she has one of the fastest reload speeds when you compare her to long-range brawlers. As one example, she can unload and reload an ammo an entire second faster than Piper's normal reload speed. So even though she deals less damage than Piper or the other snipers, missing shots will be a lot less punishing for her. We're about halfway through the Olympic tests, and for the rest of these, Belle is better than half of the brawlers. The attack test. Belle's attacks only deal 1,540 damage, which isn't an overly high attack damage, but where she really thrives is if the enemy she's attacking has Belle's target on them. In that case, she deals 2,079 damage with each shot, and 3 ammo can deal 6,237 damage, which is enough to 3-shot 38 of the 46 brawlers in the game. The super range test. Belle's super reaches a range of 10 tiles, which places her in 19th place for the super range test. Just for reference, this is as long as Sprout's and Gale's supers can reach. The slow test. Belle's super can slow enemies for 3 seconds. That's 1 second slower than both Shelly's Shell Shock star power can slow or Jesse's Spark Plug Gadget can slow. This places her in 10th place. However, there are only 12 brawlers in the game that can slow enemies, so keep that in mind. The attack range test. What I consider to be Belle's best feature is her attack range of 10 2/3 tiles. That's 2/3 tiles longer than Piper's range, B's range, and Byron's range, and it's 1/3 tile longer than Brock's attack range. Technically, Belle only places 9th because of brawlers with gimmicks to extend their range, like Rico bouncing shots off of walls, or Penny's splash attack, or Jesse's bounce shot. But other than Jean, who deals a very small amount of damage from that kind of range, Belle has the longest consistent ranged attack in the game. And this is exactly why I think she's going to be good. And now we're coming up to Belle's best test, the damage boost test. It should come as no surprise that Belle's best test is the damage boost test. After all, there are only 3 brawlers that can boost the damage of their teammates. Colonel Ruffs can boost damage by 20%, 8-Bit can boost damage by 50%, and Belle is right in the middle of the two of them, boosting damage by 35%. This means that she takes 2nd place for this test. Now let's talk about balance changes. Barley's getting a 3% buff to his attack damage. This isn't a huge buff, but His attack range is getting a 9% buff, which is a big buff. In other words, he's going to be able to attack 2/3 tiles further than before and will have the same range as 8-Bit and Leon. Carl's also getting an attack range buff by 2/3 tiles. His new range is increasing to 7 1/3 tiles long. This is 1/3 tiles shorter than his range was before it got nerfed back in December. Spike's reload speed is getting a 5% buff. Watch out, because cacti will be flying all over the place. Lou's attack damage is getting a 10% buff. This is a significant damage buff, and his freeze is also getting buffed from 1 second stun to 1.5 seconds, which is also a significant buff. Poco's supercharge rate is increasing. Instead of requiring 5 hits to charge, he's now only going to need 4 hits to charge his super. This is going to allow Poco to use his super much more frequently. Frank's getting a 3% buff to his attack damage and his super damage. This isn't a huge buff, but the fact that it's both his attack and his super makes it better than it sounds. Surge is getting a 5% buff to his attack damage, which is a pretty decent buff. Emz's bad Karma Star power is getting a pretty decent buff. The damage boost that enemies will take from additional hits from her attack is increasing from 20% to 25%. Jackie's Counter Crush star power range is increasing by 33%. It's now large enough that it even slightly outranges her regular attack range. I still don't know if this is going to make this star power competitive. BB's batting stance star power is getting a significant nerf from 30% damage reduction to 20% damage reduction, which I think is going to greatly impact its usefulness. Mr. P's attack damage is getting a 5% nerf, which is a pretty good nerf. Additionally, his Porter Reinforcements Gadget is getting nerfed pretty hard. Porters from his gadget are having their health cut in half down to only 700 health. Additionally, the damage they deal is getting nerfed by 23%. Regular porters that get spawned from his super are going to remain the same as they were before these changes. Stu is getting a 6% nerf to his health, which is actually pretty decent. He's also getting a 3% nerf to his attack damage, which isn't a huge change, but both of these together might make Stu a lot less competitive. Amber is getting a 10% nerf to her reload speed, which is a pretty significant nerf. Colonel Ruffs is getting a 7% nerf to his health, which is a pretty good nerf. Additionally, the delay between when he can fire consecutive attacks is quadrupling. You'll no longer be able to spam shots with him, which will make him much less of a threat in close-up auto-aim situations. Byron is getting an 11% nerf to his attack damage, and this is significant. It will also nerf the amount of healing that he does with his attack. Sprout is getting a 4% nerf to its attack damage, which is an okay nerf. Its Garden Mulcher Gadget is getting a 25% nerf to the amount of damage that it will heal, which is significant. You'll be happy to find that Tick is getting a 6% nerf to his attack damage, which is a decent nerf. Subscribe, watch more videos, goodbye. I said watch more videos.